Good morning and good afternoon for those in the Netherlands. Welcome to today's webinar with the topic Automotive Mexico, an advanced manufacturing hub of the future. My name is Verbree. I'm with Holland House Mexico, and I will be the host of this session today. Holland House Mexico is the Dutch-Mexican Chamber of Commerce and has as objective to facilitate the success of Dutch companies in Mexico. We do this through offering soft landing services such as support with business development, local representation, and matchmaking. I would like to thank co-hosts RAI Automotive NL and NLinBusiness for the organization of this webinar. In today's event, we will be presenting and exploring business opportunities for Dutch companies in the Mexican automotive industry. Before we start, I would like to go through some house rules. Please take note that today's session will be recorded. And we would also like to remind you that during the entire event, you can place your questions in the chat box, which you will find the lower end of the screen of the Zoom. After each presentation and panel, there will be time for questions. Taking a look at today's agenda, we will start this webinar with a presentation of the findings of the sector study, opportunities for Dutch businesses in the Mexican automotive industry. Carin, Verbree, the manager of Holland House Mexico, will be presenting this part. After that, we will have a short contribution by Bram Hendricks, who is the manager Smart Mobility at RAI Automotive NL. And finally, we will have a panel of experts sharing their experiences and recommendations about doing business in Mexico's automotive industry. So without further ado, let's move forward to the first part of today's agenda. Carin, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. So yes, today I have the honor to present some of the conclusions from our recent sector study, Opportunities for Dutch Businesses in the Mexican Automotive Industry. So first, I'd like to take a look at some of the points that we would like to discuss today, starting with Mexico in the center of the world. Then we'll have a look at the past decade, 2010 to 2020. Mexico's automotive production, the regional dynamics, and then we will be looking at how the US, Canada, and Mexico work together in the automotive industry. We'll have a look at current trends, and then we'll move on to the opportunities, and particularly the opportunities for Dutch companies in the Mexican automotive industry. So first of all, here's a little map of the world. As you can see, it's a little bit different than the ones we usually tend to see, where Mexico is right in the center of the world, the automotive world. There are a number of reasons, and these are listed on the left side, and these are particular advantages that Mexico has built up over the past years as an automotive hub. So first of all, there's the privileged geographical location, as you can clearly see in the map. There's easy access to Asia, to Europe, the rest of North America, and of course South America. Mexico has a very young, affordable, and available skilled workforce. The average age of Mexicans is only 27 years old, whereas in the Netherlands, I think it's around 43. So very young people and motivated people. It also has access to over 60% of total GDP due to the many trade agreements that Mexico has, including also the EU-Mexico trade agreement. National and state governments foster the industry, so there has been for many years now a good focus and many incentives from local and federal government in Mexico to help the automotive industry. And there is, of course, USMCA, former NAFTA, and the regional content value requirement, which makes it very attractive to produce vehicles in North America and particularly Mexico. So if we take a look at the past 10 years of the Mexican automotive industry, we can really see how life cycle started, grew to a maximum around 2016, and then got into another decline. But nowadays, Mexico is the 6th largest vehicle producer in the world, the largest in Latin America, and very important, almost 90% of Mexico's vehicle production is exported to other countries. That means that local sales are usually imported, and a very small percentage is actually produced in Mexico. Well, and where are all these cars going, you would ask? Mainly to the US, with 80% of light vehicles and almost 90% of auto parts. And with that, they are the first supplier to the US. Also very important in the past decade has been the arrival of many new OEMs, particularly Asian OEMs and also a number of German brands, including Mazda, Audi, Kia, Hyundai, Isuzu, I should say, Hino, and others. So if we have a look at another map of Mexico, this is kind of a small image here on my computer screen, but I would like to invite you to have a look at our study, where we have even included a whole list of where to find each of them. So there's a total of 21 OEMs and over 500 tier 1 and 2 suppliers in Mexico, and they're based in different regions. And one of the things that we noticed in the research is that every region has its own characteristics and its own benefits and its own particular climate that is unique to each of the states. Basically, there is the north, and then there are several locations in the center of Mexico, and there is Jalisco area, which is very interesting. And there are also many OEMs that have different plants in different regions. Looking at the current state of the industry, the automotive production in Mexico had a value last year of $143 billion, with 44% in light vehicles, 40% in auto parts, and heavy vehicles and bodyworks being a much smaller amount. And then if we have a look at the distribution of the FDI, which is very important for Mexico's automotive industry, we are looking at $72 billion for the most part of the past decade, 1999 to the end of 2019, with again 60% in auto parts, almost 40% in light vehicles, and a very small percentage in heavy vehicles. We included this slide to have a look at the national supply chain in Mexico, and I think it's very interesting where we can compare developed countries to countries such as Mexico, which is a developing economy. So on the first, the top of the pyramid, you can see it's very similar. You have the OEMs, here's Volkswagen, General Motors, BMW, etc., and there's not much of a difference there. When we look at the tier 1 companies, it's also very similar. But then there's an interesting point. Below the tier 1, so starting tier 2 and tier 3, there's a clear gap in the pyramid. And that means that there is an opportunity in 2 ways. First of all, by foreign direct investment, and the other one is by working together with local suppliers. What is happening in Mexico is that there is a lack of international standards of tier 2 and lower suppliers to comply to the rules and regulations set by OEMs and tier 1 suppliers. So this forms actually a great opportunity for foreign companies. Then, if we have a look at the regional dynamics, so it's very important that we have a clear understanding of how the US, Canada, and Mexico work together in the automotive industry. So they are not, well, of course, they are different countries, but they work together in such a close way that understanding the dynamics on a regional level will really help your company to decide what would be the best place for you to start. So I'd like to start off with the US. Evidently, that is the largest automotive industry, both in production and in local sales. I don't think that I need to say much more about that. Then if we take a look at Canada, Canada is an important player, however, a lot smaller than the production in Mexico and the US, but they are very skilled in high quality products and also at competitive prices if you compare that to the US. And that is exactly what they are focusing on. So high quality products aimed at particularly the US. And then there's, of course, Mexico. So the story of Mexican automotive industry starts in 1925, when Ford decided to built a production plant in the north of Mexico to take advantage of the low the low salaries, so the cheap labor that he could get in Mexico. And he was quickly followed by the other two great players in the US, so Chrysler and General Motors. And that was kind of the beginning of a movement where Mexico became not only in the automotive industry, but also in other industries, kind of the cheap backyards of the US, where manufacturing could be very profitable. And over time, we're talking about the 70s and the 80s and into the 90s, the Mexican government decided to have more and more incentives to attract more of these foreign investors to the country and create more jobs. In the end, and that I think is on my next slide. Yes, so NAFTA was installed, and that was a really big step forward towards the integration of the three countries. And it really also helped Mexico to position itself not only as a cheap manufacturing country, but also to excel in certain areas. So we already had a little look at the auto parts industry, and that is also some of the expertise that Mexico really brings to the table nowadays. So in total, under the whole of NAFTA, the vehicle, well, first of all, NAFTA makes it really easy to trade goods between the three countries. So if you look at the imports from Mexico and Canada to the US, it's almost 50% of the vehicles are imported, and the other way around as well. So the production in the US, 50% is exported to Mexico and Canada, roughly. And the total fleet of the three countries combined is in 2019, 350 million vehicles, including cars, light trucks, vans, SUVs, and heavy units. And 10% of that is driving around here in Mexico. And so again, that is not a huge number in comparison to the other countries. And then the USMCA was ratified in July of this year, bringing really good news. So there are some very interesting points that I would like to go into a little bit about the new USMCA treaty. First of all is the regional value content. This was already in place under NAFTA, but is now been expanded, including a higher rate of RVC required from companies, which basically means that there needs to be more production locally, so within either Canada, the US, or Mexico, in order to apply for a zero tariff import tariffs. And that applies to everything. So it applies to R&D, it applies to raw materials, to equipment, etc., etc. And it's particularly interesting for Europe because it can also be linked to the EU-Mexico FTA. So if you import under the EU-Mexico FTA to Mexico from Europe, you can then export to Canada and the US without having to pay any further import tariffs. The other way around, if we look at Asia, it's also very interesting because of the regional value content requirements, it's much more attractive for Asian companies to be based in either the US, Canada, or Mexico. And with Mexico being one of the cheaper options, it's very beneficial. So here's a little example of how the regional dynamics actually work. And you can change around the names of the cities and the countries because we really wanted to make clear how products are moved within the three countries, still under the same rules of origin. So in this example, there's raw aluminium that is shipped from Michigan to Ontario. Then a piston is produced. From Ontario, it's sent back to Michigan. In Michigan, they send it to Mexico. In Mexico, they manufacture the piston and finish it. They send it to Wisconsin, which is then sent to Ontario, and from there it is then distributed as Canadian export. So that's more or less how it works. So looking into the automotive industry, one of the very important things is always the workforce. So I already explained that there is a cheap and available and young workforce in Mexico, but many people are concerned about the level of education and preparation of these people. And one of the things we really noticed in the research and speaking to industry leaders was also that, yes, for low-skilled jobs, it is sometimes difficult to retain staff. However, there's also a very high-skilled workforce available. So in Mexico, 100,000 engineering and technical students graduate each year. There are 900 graduate programs related to engineering and technology in Mexican universities, and that outranks them and when we compare them to countries such as Japan and Italy and Germany. Also important to mention is that in Mexico, there's no distinction between universities of science and University of Applied Sciences. So the level is somewhere in between. And one of the things that was very positive to see is that there are more and more collaborations between OEMs, tier one suppliers, local governments, and knowledge institutions. So there are special programs already being designed to better fit the needs of OEMs and tier one suppliers in Mexico. And the automotive industry also creates a lot of jobs. So there are 1 million direct jobs in Mexico through the automotive industry and 5 million indirect jobs. And that is 21% of all the manufacturing jobs available in the country. One of the things that we also really looked at during the study is R&D, which is, of course, something that the Netherlands really excels in. And there has been a lot of movement here. So up until the past decade, so before before the 2000s, there was not very much R&D being done in Mexico. However, this has changed a lot, and also because of the lower cost of R&D here in Mexico, whilst at the same time the workforce skill is now up to the standards required by OEMs and tier one suppliers doing R&D. And we can see that it is in many ways. So in the past few years, there have been several OEMs that have been speaking about making investments towards new R&D centers, but they've been kind of waiting until the USMCA treaty would have been ratified to make sure that that was indeed a very good investment. And what we see now is that despite of the pandemic, all of these companies has already committed to making these investments, and they're going to be starting any minute now. And actually, some of them have already begun. Also in the local market, there's also been a lot of interest in doing more R&D here in Mexico. So there is an $82 million investment from companies in the auto parts industry, Mexican companies. And they are going to do more R&D in electric parts, for instance. And that also has a lot to do with current trends. Obviously, there are some global trends which are happening in terms of the new forms of looking at mobility, technological innovation, everything to do with electrification and case vehicles. And that is something that is also happening in Mexico. However, Mexico has never been an innovation leader, and we don't expect it to become one in the near future either. But since Mexico really doesn't produce for the Mexican market, what we really should be looking at is the American market. And there are some very interesting things happening. So for instance, with the new President Biden, I think that we could expect something similar as what is happening right now in England, where they decided to only allow the sales of electrical vehicles after 2030. So I'm not saying Biden is going to do that immediately, but there is going to be a larger focus on electric vehicles. And that is very profitable also for Mexico, particularly because they are already having experience in the manufacturing of electrical and hybrid components of cars. And this can only grow. So several OEMs are already confirming to start the production of electric vehicles and electric vehicle parts in the very near future. Particularly, there's one Mexican OEM, it's called Sacua, and they are the only ones at the moment that produce 100% electric vehicles. And then the Ford Mustang Mach-E has been announced that will be going into production in Mexico in the beginning of next year. BMW is working on electrification, so is General Motors. Nissan has announced the production of vehicles in the electric vehicles in Mexico in the near future. So a lot of things are happening. Over here on this slide, you can see a number of different categories. Each of them we've discussed in the research, and I would like to invite you to have a look at it. Right now, I'm afraid that there's not too much time to get really into them. I would like to point out lightweighting as well. It's a very important trend. Again, where we see that because of the demands of the OEMs and the tier 1 suppliers, there are a lot of changes going on in lightweighting, where we are looking for mixed solutions that are also have to do with the energy efficiency and sustainability of manufacturing. Government policy and public transport is also a very important one. And again, I'd like to invite you to have a look at the study, because there are several local governments that are really focusing on the electrification and technological changes that are happening. And they're having a lot of local incentives for foreign companies as well. I think it would be best to have a look at the study for more information on all of this. About Industry 4.0, there are several experts that think that Mexico has the potential to become the Industry 4.0 leader of Latin America. And I must say that it's looking good. I think that if Mexico continues to promote Industry 4.0, not only through companies, but also on a federal government level, then I think that things are looking up, and it might be very possible. So now I would like to go into the opportunities that we identified. So we already had a lot of discussion about the different aspects, the local state, and what has happened in the past decade, and how the automotive industry grew and flourished in the past decade. And this all leads to a number of different opportunities, and we classified them in different levels. So we'll be looking at the macro level, the meso level, and the micro level. So the micro level is very specific, and the macro level is very broad. So the best news that we have today is that the Mexican automotive industry will continue to grow in the next years and decades. That is something that everybody we spoke to during the study has agreed upon. There is no doubt about it. Things are only looking up. So despite of the current pandemic, and of course they are taking a bit of a hit, it really doesn't compare to other sectors. And something that I didn't mention before, but I think is very interesting. The US, at some point during the pandemic, there was no automotive production allowed in Mexico, and it was actually the US who requested Mexico to reopen production because they were running out of parts. So that again underlines the big importance of the regional dynamics. So the world's leading OEMs manufacture in Mexico and require short supply chains. So as more and more OEMs are coming to Mexico and also from Asia, more and more short supply chains are required, meaning that there are going to be increasingly more opportunities. Then again, the USMCA free trade agreement that we discussed earlier is also one of the big factors that is going to contribute to the further flourishing of the automotive market in Mexico. The US-China trade war is something that we haven't discussed just yet, but it makes Mexico a very attractive production location for Asian companies in the industry. So rather than doing production in China and then trying to export to the US, they are now moving towards Mexico to have easy access to the US. Something that we did mention before is the EU-Mexico Free Trade Agreement and the USMCA. So Dutch companies can really profit from benefiting from both of the treaties. And Mexico is also committed to the 2030 sustainability goals. Now, that is something that we might, with the current government, not always see that clearly, but the commitment is still signed. So we are expecting this to happen. Also, the electrification of the automotive industry is something that is unstoppable. So it is going to happen, yes, see or see, like how they say in Mexico. When we look at some of the challenges, Mexico is currently still a manufacturing hub, so not an innovation leader, but rather a follower. So that is something that, well, we basically see through the foreign tier 1 and OEMs companies that it is changing, and they are bringing in lots of the R&D and innovation, also technological innovation, but still Mexican companies might need a little bit of convincing towards getting into advanced manufacturing. And that also applies to the lower tier companies. Remember that we saw the little triangle and the diamond shape. So that's also something to look out for. Again, the collaboration between universities, companies and the government is very, very important in many different ways, in terms of R&D, in terms of the skilled workforce, in terms of the availability and possibilities for foreign direct investment, etc. The education disparity is also something that we talked about a little bit. So there are very low-skilled, very cheap workers as well. And how do you manage both and for the best benefit of your company? And then there are, of course, the regular challenges to the adaptation to Industry 4.0 and other technologies, anything that has to do with the digitalization gap, cybersecurity, etc., etc. So if we take a look at the meso level, well, Mexico automotive industry is at a crossroad, transforming from a traditional manufacturing destination into the advanced manufacturing hub, which is also the title of today's webinar. So innovation and knowledge are both required. And I think this is a great opportunity for Dutch companies because we are very good at that. So yeah, investments toward expansion, innovation, automation in production centers of the OEMs and tier 1 suppliers, they are really expected any minute now. And some of them are already being implemented, which also allows for a lot of opportunities. Again, the diamond shape of the tier 2 and lower suppliers that need to get up to standards. North American consumers, they are expected to increasingly demand customized experiences in terms of armoring, security, special equipment, automated parking, etc., etc. And this is something that we're also beginning to see in the Mexican local market as well. Then there's a point about sustainability, which of course is everywhere in the world very important. But of course, there are also some challenges. So the political agendas of each of the USMCA members may form a threat to how the original content rules are specifically met. So there's still a little bit of uncertainty. I think with the new presidents in the US, there will be less of a worry on this item as well. But it is something to take into account. Then there are some people that are concerned about the minimum wage requirement, which is also included in the USMCA treaty. However, this does not mean that manufacturing in Mexico is going to be much more expensive, or that people here are going to be getting much higher wages. Rather, it means that the distribution is going to be a little bit different. So in order to meet the requirements, you need to have a certain percentage of the production in a higher paid segment. But you can use R&D for that. You can use certain components for that. And as we saw in the example of how the regional dynamics work, there's so much interaction between the countries that it's not too hard to fulfill. And for Dutch companies particularly, I think it can also be seen as an advantage, because if there's going to be less if it's going to be less attractive to have low-skilled workers for cheap labor, then that means it's going to be more attractive to implement more technology, which is obviously good for Dutch companies. And then here there's something about the barriers for adaptation of electrical vehicles. Well, I think that is a challenge in many parts of the world. Mexico, at least Mexico City, has already an extensive network of charging stations. However, there are not many electric vehicles in the streets yet. And we also think that this will be something that will take its time in comparison to other countries. So we're expecting to see more electric vehicles after 2030 in Mexico itself. Well, then there are several opportunities which are really on a micro level. I'd like to refer you to the study to have a close look at all of them. Some are about lightweighting, there are others about electric vehicles, there's a little bit about innovation, about new technologies, the digital aftermarket, and also heavy vehicles. But I would like to move on now to the opportunities specifically for Dutch companies in the Mexican automotive industry. So we listed 7 of them. I'll start at the bottom, the regional opportunities. So as I explained before, there are several specific characteristics to each region in the country. Some of them are really close to the US, others are really at the center of the country. There are some that are in regions that have a very good mix between collaboration of the government, companies, and knowledge institutions. Some of the governments are really focused on electrification and new technologies, innovation, others not so much. So it's important to have a clear idea of what is the strength of each of these regions in order to make the best decision, that there are different opportunities in each of the regions. So now starting at the top. So innovation, research and development, solutions to support Mexico's transition to become an advanced manufacturing hub is probably the biggest opportunity that we identified in this study. Mexico is ready for technological innovation and they're already implementing it, but there's still a lot of lack of knowledge and more expertise where the Dutch fit in like a glove. So the development focused on Industry 4.0, capacities such as computer science, IT systems, artificial intelligence. That's exactly what OEMs and tier 1 suppliers are looking for, and it's also something that the Dutch excel in. Then the third one is the supply to tier 2 suppliers and lower tiers, both traditional and advanced manufacturing solutions. So it's important to mention also that the traditional solutions are also very important here because of what I explained, that there is a lack of quality and consistency in the supply of tier 2 and lower manufacturers. Then there is the customization of vehicles, and this applies also to the local market. So as we have seen, most of the vehicles are usually intended for the US market, where there is a lot of demand for customization. But also in Mexico itself, we see that there is a growth in the demand for customization. And we think that this also provides a good opportunity for Dutch companies. And number 5 is lightweighting and sustainability. We've already covered this a little bit, particularly the mixed material solutions are particularly important at the moment. Then there is some point that we haven't really discussed yet. There is a market share available for European truck brands and heavy vehicle supply chain. So there's been a change in the regulations of the Mexican law, and it has allowed for making the heavy vehicles from Europe actually a lot more attractive than before. So up until now, most of the trucks that drive around in Mexico are from American manufacturing, but we are seeing a shift and we think that the market share for European trucks will be expanding in the country. And then it's important to mention that we don't expect there to be an increase in the fleet so much, rather than the market share being available for European countries. So again, about the electrification trend. So it's still in premature stages in Mexico, but it is going to shape the automotive industry in the coming years. We really don't have a lot of doubt about that. And in the term, if we look at the case vehicles, well, they are the future. It's something that is definitely happening. And there's going to be demand on the production and the innovation side, but also in all the related fields in R&D, the EV charging system, infrastructure, and all of the associated technologies. So with that, I would like to conclude the conclusion of the findings of this sector study. The study itself, I think, is about 100 pages, so I'm sure we were not able to cover all of it. If you have any questions, then please get in touch with us. You can also still download the full report, and we will be happy to share today's presentation with you. And I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Carin, for your presentation. At this moment, we don't seem to have questions from the audience, but yeah, I would still like to invite you to place your questions in the chat box. And if you have a specific question, related to this study, as already mentioned by Carin, please reach out to us at Holland House. We'll move on to the next part of today's program. Next up, we will hear from Bram Hendricks, who is the manager Smart Mobility for RAI Automotive NL. And Bram will elaborate shortly about Dutch expertise and ambitions. So Bram, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this opportunity to say a few words to all the participants in this very interesting webinar. And I hope that everybody also has time is going to take time to read the full report, because it's full of very relevant information about the automotive industry in Mexico and the opportunities over there. So thanks again for the opportunity. My name is Bram Hendricks, working for RAI Automotive Industry NL, which is the Dutch cluster organization of automotive mobility companies with about 200 members. And when you look at our members and our industry, then well, for some people it's not that well known in the world, our automotive industry, and that's because we don't have the big brands. But on the other side, we have a lot of innovative, high-tech, very interesting companies working for the global automotive industry with a total turnover of about 20 billion euros in the Netherlands, and almost 90% of that turnover for export. Everybody knows that our industry is really thinking, acting, and doing everything in an international way and perspective. So that's also the reason that we as cluster organization would like to help our partners, our members, to become more innovative, to create more opportunities for trade, for collaboration inside the Netherlands, but also internationally. I'm responsible at Automotive Industry NL for the Smart Mobility program, but also for the internationalization strategy. And with help of you, in this case, Holland House Mexico, but also NLinBusiness and a lot of other partners, we would like to inform our members in the best way about the opportunities there are all over the world. And there are a lot of opportunities for our industry. And that's not only because I'm telling you that, but also others tell us that. For example, one of the famous automotive consultants, Roland Berger from Austria, makes every year the automotive disruption radar. What country is the most disruptive when it comes to automotive and mobility technologies? And the Netherlands is ranked #1 over there. And that's also the case in the in KPMG's report about autonomous vehicles readiness. What country is the most ready for those new vehicles? Well, the Netherlands is ranked again #1. So that shows that we have a very interesting, innovative industry, and like I said, suppliers for the global automotive industry. Not always the very big suppliers, but also the suppliers on the tier 2, 3, 4, 5 level. And for them, it's really interesting to see what's happening in Mexico. We all know that there is very good production over there, and also a lot of production. This report helps a lot to not only say, okay, I heard about that, but now you really have the insights. You can read over there what kind of companies are over there, where the investments are, what the place to be is. So please again try to take some time to make a deep dive in that study when you are interested to go to that market, to the Americas, to that side of the world, although it was mapped in the center of the world in the web map of the world we saw. And of course you're right about that. So we are very happy with the support of Holland House Mexico, other partners, that this study now is ready for our members, for our industry and ecosystem with ambitions. And we are always open to help, especially our members, of course, to go international. So please contact me when you have questions about where we can help. Also, my colleague Jean-Pierre Heister is in this call. He's responsible for our manufacturing and materials program. I think a lot of you know him. He has a lot of expertise in the automotive industry, and we are really open to help our partners to find new collaborations and new business opportunities, especially in these times where the automotive industry is also facing really hard times. So thanks again for all your help, for the great report, and we are open to help everybody with good ideas to go to Mexico. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Bram. So moving on to the next part of this webinar, we're very glad to have a panel of experts with us today who will share about their experience in the Mexican automotive sector. So participating with us today are Lucas Díaz. Lucas is the Managing Director of AWL Mexico. Next to him we have Jacko van der Stege, who is the Global Business Development Director of Visscher-Caravelle. And the third panelist is Alejandro Enriquez. And Alejandro is the industry analyst at Mexico Automotive Review. So welcome to you all panelists, and thank you for joining us today. The aim of this panel is to share insights on how to do business in Mexico, and also to share recommendations to companies new to the market. So we'll be hearing all about this from our panelists today. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump to the first question right away. Both Visscher-Caravelle and AWL have operations in Mexico. And it will be interesting to hear from both companies what are their reasons for setting up shop in Mexico. So I think for this question, we can start with you, Jacko. See if we can unmute you, just a moment. I think you're still in mute, Jacko. Let me see if someone from our team can help you with unmuting you.
Does this work?
This works now, yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Sorry, I did it only on my microphone and not in the program itself. But anyway, yeah, happy to share some of our experience in Mexico over the last few years. We're now, I guess, 5 or 6 years in Mexico up and running. Main reason for us to come was simply business driven. We had a number of customers in the America region already we're there with a sales office for more than 10, 15 years. And some of the customers were simply requiring us to come to the NAFTA region in order to gain more business. So if we wanted to have more business, it was clear for us that we needed to have an operation up and running either in America or in the new NAFTA region. That was a main reason. And it turned out to be a very good reason, because meanwhile we have won a lot of business volume based on having the operations there. I think we're now 8 times as large in terms of volume today as what we were before we had the operation locally. Then comes avoiding duties and transport costs, increasing local content, which is also clearly a customer wish. And for us, also quite important, getting a shorter supply chain means also having less capital involved, and having a stronger local presence also helps us in terms of the certainty, the reliability of the supply chain over there. Last but not least, being cost competitive in the region. We wanted a big production hub, which we do in every continent basically. And so if we were to make a step to the region, it would be one production base, what then would evolve over time to be the production base for that whole region. And in the end, Mexico was the favorite option.
Thank you. Lucas, perhaps over to you.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, I think a similar situation that Jacko says. AWL Mexico found the importance of being close to our customers. Most of them are European companies in the Tier 1 sector that moved to Mexico for this market region. So it was key our statement in AWL is to ensure global productivity. So what we do is support these companies to have the productivity up and running. And the only way to do that is by being close. The automotive industry is, we all know, is a lot of stress and pressure. So every minute counts. So if we can have a driving distance to one of our customers, that can make completely the difference. And that could help a lot to grow the business, right? Because it's not one-time sale that you just ship something from Europe, but it's something that is a constant support to our customers, and they feel safe that any issue they can have in their production facilities, they have a partner that will step in and help in the production.
Thank you, Lucas. Yeah, looking at something that was also mentioned during the earlier presentation by Carin, Mexico is currently at a crossroads, moving from traditional manufacturing hub to becoming the innovation hub of Latin America. So question to you all, panelists, why do you consider Mexico an attractive market at this moment? And perhaps we can start with you, Alejandro.
Sure. Indeed, when we think about Mexico and the automotive industry and the role it plays, we used to think about manufacturing as a manufacturing hub, and it is true. But also, some companies, tier ones, have specialized processes that are only made here. So that becomes that leads us to be really convenient to have engineering development operations here, and also part of R&D operations here, which will be really easy to apply to the process that they only have here. On the other hand, we also have companies like Bosch, Continental, Faurecia that are developing R&D centers in the country, given the new USMCA rules. So all elements, as Carin mentioned, is not expected that Mexico will become the innovation hub of North America. Of course, we have that clear, but there will be more and more R&D operations and engineering development operations for a specialized process that will take place and are taking place in the country.
Thank you, Alejandro. Lucas, do you have something to add to that?
Yes, I think as Carin mentioned before, the strategic location of Mexico in the North America region makes a key point of the start. But when you ask why at this moment, also we are facing two realities right now. One is the COVID situation, one is the trade wars that we have. So this will add to have more reshoring, bring back business to the region. And I think that will be a thing that we'll be looking in the next in the following time. So that's also become now again more attractive to have Mexico again as a great force for the region to support the US, the biggest market, but also Canadian companies. And I think this will continue to grow.
Thank you, Lucas. Jacko?
Yeah, just to confirm what has been said before, for us, the main reason to be in Mexico is not innovation. And the first reason to be there is to have an excellent manufacturing base. Quality, cost, delivery, that's where we need to excel, and that works very well in Mexico. And that's our main reason. However, we have started vertical integration. We just launched a new factory beginning this year, end of last year. And we do that, we produce floor mats for cars, and we now produce some carpet over there as well. And that carpet line of production is really state of the art. And so that's really, similar technology, maybe more modern technology than what we would be using back in Europe. So it shows that we are not slowed down in terms of innovation, even if product and technology innovation does not primarily come from Mexico. It's a good place where you can definitely be very innovative with the processes. That's how we see it.
Thank you, Jacko. I think that's a good bridge as well to the next question, and that is addressed to both Dutch companies here. How did you approach the market entry to Mexico? And what are some of the obstacles you had to overcome when starting up the business in Mexico? And how did you achieve this? Perhaps we can start with you again, Jacko.
Yeah, well, that's a short question. You could give a very long answer to that, so I'll try to keep it short. Actually, it has been quite a journey, and I'm quite happy that we did it that way, because we really wanted to find a place in Mexico where we could stay for the long run. So we took quite some time to do a very good site selection search, and took a whole team to involve there, and then landed finally in Querétaro, where we are today. We're very happy with that choice. What we saw is that there are clear regional differences, and that's one of the things that you need to be aware of. What are you looking for? What type of labor skills you need? What type of infrastructure is important for you? What facilities you need? How important is pure cost advantage for you, or is having good engineering skills more important for you? And so you need to be very much aware of what you actually aim at in order to make a good choice. That's my experience. I can also say, looking back, hindsight is that some things were probably a little bit overcomplicated. And so we understood that some things are very difficult. I'm not saying that everything is very easy. Mexico is not Europe, but I think hindsight, it was a good choice that we first had support, but in the end we did a lot of things by ourselves. It takes time, but definitely very well possible. If you have time, all the issues that you could see in tax and administrative burdens, etc., you will be able to overcome if you pay good attention. We had quite a bit of support from the Dutch business networks. The connections in the Dutch community, I would say, are usually good, and it's very helpful in my view. And in our case, local government relationships were also very helpful. So we, from the beginning, we had good connections with the local Querétaro government, and that has been very supportive. And if you had some trouble understanding the rules or knowing how things work, then there was always somebody that you could contact, and that has helped us a lot. So that also plays a role in choice of location, I would say. And more particular for our company, we everywhere around the world we work very much relationship driven. So in our case, that means we really take time to build up a strong local team. We delegate a lot. We train a lot. We give a lot of on-site support by flying in people, but we let the local team manage in the end. And that means you really need time to select the right team everywhere around the world. Mexico is no specific there, but in the end it definitely pays off. So that has been our approach to solve a lot of the practical issues that you have, and also with time zone difference, culture difference, etc. If at least you know the people you have there in the lead, you can rely on, you can trust, and you know it may be an issue to communicate, but in the end you all want the same, then you can overcome a lot of issues, I believe, and that has been our experience. I believe if there were struggles, that the struggles were definitely not automotive related. So for if you have struggles to find your way in the country, then it has to do with the local settings, but definitely not because Mexico would not be such a good place for automotive, or that you have specific struggles there. There's broad experience. There's, as this study also points out, there's a good level of know-how. There is a wide range of possible suppliers and partners around you, there's really a very good base of production experience for automotive in Mexico that you can easily tap into. So that has definitely not been our struggle, I would say. So I hope this answers a little bit of the question, at least.
Excellent. Actually, you already gave some excellent recommendations there. We'll get into the recommendations part later on. So thank you for that, Jacko. Lucas, would you like to comment as well on this question?
Yeah, for us, we did a step-by-step growth in Mexico. We started WL as a service company, but then we started developing the plan better in order to fulfill more requirements from the customer. So we realized how important was the labor force we have in Mexico, with motivated young person that eager to contribute in this project. At the same time, having a solid and reliable supply chain was a good relief in our segment. And that's how we start growing from a service facility in Mexico to a manufacturing facility. Now we can be able to fabricate tooling, to fabricate machines for welding. But this, we did it in steps. And also we are happy to be here in Querétaro, and how we define all these steps in order to make it work. One of the obstacles that I face here is AWL is a very high-tech company in Europe, that we have a state-of-the-art technology, but sometimes you have to understand your markets. Some customers can require this type of solutions, but not everyone. We talk about the tier 1s, tier 2, tier 3. What I did together with the Mexican team and the board was to open a little bit our portfolio to be more flexible to the market, the local market demands. I'm talking about technical, I'm talking about commercial, in order to really have products that fulfill the needs. So I think that will be how to adapt products and service in the Mexican market according to this. And this can be from finance, can be from labor hours, many aspects that we have to take care.
Thank you, Lucas. I think with that, we can move forward to the next question. All three of you, what is your outlook for this sector in terms of innovation, and then specifically in terms of electrification and case vehicles? And where do you think Dutch companies can play a role? Alejandro, would you like to start?
Sure. It is a really interesting question. Industry leaders actually expect that 20% of the vehicles that will be produced in Mexico in 2025 will be either hybrid, plug-in or non-plug-in, or electric. So electrification is happening in Mexico, and it is also because not only, although most exports are intended for the US market, Mexico also exports to other countries in the world, including Europe, which is taking a stronger electrification steps. So that is happening, and that is reflecting, that will be reflected strongly in the supply chain, because an electric vehicle requires more wires and other kinds of processes that should be carried on at the same time of production. So that opens an opportunity for companies, all over the world. And also, one another important trend when it comes to and related to electrification and sustainability is that automakers have set goals to reduce carbon emissions, which also leads to pay closer attention to what their suppliers are doing, so in order to reduce the overall carbon footprint they are having. So this will be also reflected in the supply chain, and Mexican suppliers and also global players located in the country will have to embrace these trends. And final point. As it was mentioned during the presentation, the arrival of Joe Biden to the US presidency, it's really relevant for taking on with green vehicles and all the incentives they require to boost the demand of this kind of vehicles in the US, which will also be reflected in the Mexican automotive industry.
Thank you, Alejandro. Jacko?
Yeah, let me focus a little bit on the last part of the question. What you think is the advantage for Dutch companies? And I think especially for us as Dutch, some things we often take for granted, but they are not so obvious, is that we are very open-minded for innovation. Our country is very open culture, and there is a lot of relatively fast adoption of change. And I think this helps also in business. So the first mover advantage, it's something we can often take. We're relatively entrepreneurial, risk taking, and fast in adopting new things. And I believe this kind of character you can also benefit very much from if it comes to this type of innovations in the business. And it's a very innovative period. I don't think people in automotive have ever seen this kind of rapid and dramatic change in the sector ever. So it's a period where that's a great advantage. That's one thing. Second, well, NXP is mentioned in the report in this study as one of the blue chip companies for chips for automotive. And if you think of that, there's really quite a attractive know-how in the Netherlands available for the automotive industry related to chips, related to gaming, virtual reality. So there's quite a bit which is relevant to this whole business arena of case technology. The last thing I would say is maybe it's a disadvantage for us sometimes that we are not linked to an OEM, because we hardly have any OEM production in the Netherlands, and the last one is at risk. But it's also a positive factor, because we are not suspicious. We are not automatically sharing all the know-how with PSA or with Audi or with GM or whoever. We are quite neutral, so it's safe to innovate with us, I would say.
Excellent, thank you, Jacko. Lucas, would you like to add something to that?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Emerging opportunities will come with electric cars, with these new realities. I will not say not even trends anymore. So yeah, we have to be close. AWL wants to be close to this wave of technologies, which require lighter materials, new process of union of materials. So this type of cars or this type of industry will require different technologies, different approach. So definitely that will take many opportunities for Dutch companies, and Mexico will be definitely a hub for manufacturing these new technologies that will end up mostly in the North America region. But yeah, it's something to stay close to it.
Definitely agree to that, Lucas. On to the next question. Well, at Holland House, we support Dutch companies to set up shop in Mexico through offering soft landing services, as already mentioned. Visscher-Caravelle offers something similar, as the Dutch automotive supplier works together with foreign companies new to the market, and offers production capability at the Visscher-Caravelle plant in Mexico. So perhaps, Jacko, could you elaborate a bit on this process and take us through what is happening at Visscher-Caravelle?
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to share a little bit about that. Contrary to what Holland House is doing, for Holland House, soft landing is your core business. For us, making floor mats is the core business. And as a sideline, because we are there, we can help others. And that's the way it works for us. So for us, this is not core business, but if we find partners, and I intentionally say partners, companies that we really feel like, hey, this could be nice for the midterm or the longer term, then we are willing to cooperate and to partner up. That's the way we do help. And what we do is actually a manufacturing service, which can be a contract manufacturing or something like build, operate, transfer. So to develop a manufacturing site, run it for a couple of years, and then hand over to the partner, or even a joint venture structure. So the whole idea is basically to really start up a manufacturing unit for the other party and run it either for a few years or in the long run. So that's also the reason why I say, well, for us it's a sideline. We can do that for 1 or 2, 3 companies at the same time, not more than that. So currently we have one such partnership in Mexico, and with the same company we also produce for them in Poland as well. We now do that for about 3 years. Why would you do that? So if you consider to come to Mexico and you would feel like, hey, why partner with a company like Visscher and not do it yourself? Well, some of the reasons could be it's fast. It would definitely take you much more time to find your own way and start completely by yourself, because we have done a lot of the work that you still would have to do. So time to market could be a reason. Management capacity, that you simply don't have the international management and staff in place to support the startup of an operation in a country which is relatively far away. Definitely also avoid some of the startup losses and limit your investments, because we have all the overhead structure and the facility and everything in place. That really helps. And I would say risk management in terms of culture, selecting staff, safety, running a site, making sure you can perform to OE standards. And that's all of that we already have developed over the years. So those are some of the factors that come into play. So I would say if you have all the time in the world and you have the resources to do it by yourself, yeah, better do it by yourself. If you don't, then this might be a good option. That's in a nutshell what it offers. As I said, we do it currently for a company that's based in the UK, started in 2017, now running with about 70 people in Querétaro and about 100 in Poland. Today their overseas business is roughly the same, if not bigger, than the UK operations. So it's been quite a nice journey with them, and it also was interesting for us because it learned us some new technology and really good to do. So that's the short summary of it, I would say, for now.
Thank you, Jacko. I think it's an excellent structure there. As I recall, you also did something similar. You partnered up with a Dutch company in Mexico. Would you like to touch upon that as well, or shall we leave that out for now?
Yeah, well, as a sideline, what happened one day is this company is doing something with a robotized assembly line, and one of our robots, which does a welding operation, broke down, so they needed service from the UK because it's a UK piece of equipment, and we thought, no, we simply don't have time because of the time difference. It will be tomorrow that somebody can even dive into it. So we quickly made a phone call to AWL and said, hey, can somebody please jump in the car because you're on the same park, and please have a look at it. So before the UK gave approval for involving AWL, we already had solved the problem with them, which was quite nice.
Shows the collaboration between Dutch companies in Mexico, no?
Yeah, it was a good example. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jacko. Let's move on to the final question. What advice would you give Dutch companies interested in expanding to the Mexican market? Lucas, maybe start with you.
Sure. I think the advice for me is to take advantage of the community, the Dutch community that is already established in Mexico, to have more insights of the market, because I will assume there will be specific questions that needs to be addressed. But what I realize with the Dutch community is a very collaborative, very supportive. To be honest, as a Mexican, I'm impressed with the response that we have with Dutch companies or associations. So get close to commerce chambers as the Holland House Mexico. Then the SO is also an excellent resource from the embassy to get it close to it. So, and of course, all the companies. I think if via LinkedIn or any person contact me to ask some question, I will be more than happy to support. And I guess it's the same for the rest of the Dutch companies. So really take that advantage that is already here in Mexico.
Thank you, Lucas. Jacko?
Yeah.
You mentioned a few questions back, but maybe some details as to how you see the recommendations.
Yeah, I will give a few general ones. The first one I would say is if you decide to go, then don't hesitate and take a firm approach. So either really dedicate yourself to it and go for it. Either appoint a whole team and go through the learning curve by yourself. Take time, be prepared for it and do it. Or find yourself a trustworthy partner like us, like Holland House, like others that can help you, but don't do it kind of trial and error and halfway. I've seen other companies trying to do that and they usually fail. So take a bold approach, I would say. Whatever your approach is, I don't mind. So I'm not just advertising our services here. That's not the point. The point is go for it if you go, and otherwise probably wait till the time is ready. The second one is, I would say, be genuine in building up a real strong team. And that's part of the style we have, but I would also say it fits very well to Mexico because Mexico is a family culture. So give trust and really create such a family culture in your business also. Our family in Mexico, so to speak, is now about 500 people. So it's not a small family anymore. But I believe it really has that atmosphere, and that has brought us really a lot. If I look to what happened to in surviving through a very difficult period of time. So in the second quarter of the year, that was really a major move. In autumn, when we saw that business volumes are high and goes really well, we paid back, which is really something that's unusual. But you can imagine what that does in the family, both sides. The first step, but the second one in return then also. I believe such things are really special, and I highly appreciate that style of working. The third thing, if you feel like Mexico is really very special in the way it's difficult, then I would say no, it's just different in some ways. And it's also the same in many other aspects. Like all the automotive rules, they are the same anywhere around the world, also in Mexico. Many rules in life, in business, they equally apply in Mexico. And if you find some differences, then Asia, America are equally different, and the Netherlands also. So you yourself are as different as they are, I would say. And that's always good to keep in mind. Mexico is just another country with its own peculiar things and interesting ways, and it's good to be aware, and there's nothing very tricky or difficult, I would say. And it's good to realize that from time to time.
Exactly. Well, thank you for your recommendations. Alejandro, perhaps over to you, maybe for a general recommendation for foreign companies, and then we have time maybe for one quick question, and then it's time to wrap up.
Sure. Well, just to add to what you already said, it's really interesting to explore the figure of joint ventures, because it is true there are a lot of opportunity areas or tier 2 and tier 3 levels, and there have been some successful stories regarding joint ventures between European companies and Mexican medium-sized companies that really have the potential to conduct similar processes and operations as these companies do in Europe. So this has been a figure that has been productive and really efficient in some cases, particularly in the northern part of the country. And it's a figure that is worth exploring, no? In addition to what Lucas and Jacko mentioned, be in touch with chambers of commerce and then find potential partners that could apply to this scheme.
Thank you, Alejandro. Yeah, one final question, I think, to round off today's webinar. Alejandro, you already touched upon it really quickly. Of course, Joe Biden is about to enter office next January, and he's betting on clean energy, EV development, and US manufacturing jobs. And this will likely echo also to the in the Mexican auto industry. What can we expect in Mexico from this change in administration? Lucas or Jacko, can you perhaps comment on this?
Yeah, let's see. Definitely there will be changes. We know we sign a trade agreement, a renew version of it. So I think we can expect more collaboration. That's one of the feelings I can have. It is difficult to say at this point, but definitely I think the regional growth will be something that will continue to increase, and agreements and communication, I think, can go more fluent. And I think USA understands what is the role of Mexico and how can support to compete with other industries as Asia, and rather than find it as a potential risk, it's a completely a partner strategy. And I think he will be more in line to grow this market regional, but I think just the time will say it.
Thank you, Lucas. Jacko, anything to add?
Yeah, I'm not so sure I don't want to disappoint any supporters of Joe Biden here in this call, but I'm not so sure whether the impact of Joe Biden taking office is the biggest thing in the coming period. I think the impact of what COVID-19 does to this world is much bigger. And I think the main impact of that will for a long period be that we are all aware how fragile our logistics and supply chains are, and that regionalizing our supply chains will be a much bigger topic. And that actually goes in favor of Mexico, because bringing more US manufacturing jobs home, what Trump wants and what Biden probably also wants, that will only reinforce that trend. So you will see that the parts supply from Mexico and also the assembly in Mexico will be rather safe, in my view. So I think the big thing is that we will see more regional supply chains and less parts coming crisscross over the world left and right. And I think that favors Mexico as a manufacturing base.
Excellent. Good news for Mexico. All right. Well, thank you very much, panelists, for your participation today, for your time. Well, with that, we have come to the end of today's webinar. I would also like to thank all the participants for joining. And of course, a thank you to RAI Automotive NL and to NLinBusiness for the organization of this webinar. Yeah, I would like to say, please keep an eye out on our future events. We will be announcing these on our website and through social media. So yeah, keep an eye out. Thank you very much. And for those in the Netherlands, have a good evening. And here in Mexico, have a good day. And see you soon. Thank you.